Just want to say a few words from an outside perspective on the candidacy of Mike Bloomberg for the Democratic nomination for United States President. Bloomberg didn't take part in uh, the early stages of the election, none of the debates last year, the election process, I should say. I don't think his name was on the ballot of the Iowa caucus or the New Hampshire primary. Um, but now he's spending over 400 million of his estimated 60 billion fortune on these ads. I just, I've seen some of the ads are powerful. They're poignant. They're good ads. They're snappy and to the point. Um, but with Mike Bloomberg, one cannot get away from the money factor. The fact this guy is, he's not just one of the wealthiest people in the United States, he's one of the wealthiest people in the world. There was quite a lot made of Trump's wealth. But even Trump would took, I mean, Trump's wealth has been estimated about 3 billion. Mike Bloomberg, 60 billion. That's probably the equivalent of some small sub-Saharan African nations, entire nations. So we're talking staggering wealth, staggering. Now, there's no indication that he has amassed that fortune through any sort of corruption or illegal methods, not that I know of anyway. But I think the contention here is that he will just buy the nomination. And then what will we end up with? We'll end up with a situation where the two party candidates for President of the United States are both filthy rich. One of them staggeringly filthy rich. Um, I would say most leading American politicians are, if not close to, a lot of them are millionaires. Millionaires is almost normal in American politics. The thing in America, but I mean, in British politics, it would be like, oh, this candidate's a millionaire, and there'd be some focus on that. In American politics, millionaires are normal. It's who are the billionaires. I mean, even Sanders is a millionaire. Um, and I don't think, by the way, that disqualifies someone. I don't think if you're rich, you can't be. John F. Kennedy was incredibly rich. Um, so I don't think that is a disqualifying factor. But I think the concern here is that American politics each election gets more and more expensive. I mean, we're talking about $1 billion elections. This is going to be the way this is going. It's going to run into the billions, plural. I mean, the thing with Bloomberg, he ticks a lot of the right boxes for a Democratic candidate. Yes, there's some allegations against him, which Elizabeth Warren brought up, sexual harassment allegations. And she challenged Bloomberg to allow women to give their full version of events from his organization. He retorted that his organization had done more to promote women. Um, with that one, I think it's allegations are allegations, but definitely an innocent man wouldn't be, buying silence if that's the case. And this is a big if. One thing I like about Bloomberg is he has been consistently strong on the gun issue. Now, to be fair, every Democratic candidate is. There's no Democrat in the current field that I would say is weak on the gun issue. And if I were an American, that would be a big, big thing for me because I think it is a chronic problem in the United States, preventable gun massacres. I think it is pretty sick that you have armed militias going through the streets of Virginia, literally guys trying to look like Rambo. Um, Probably half of them believe in the crisis actors conspiracy theory. So when it comes to the gun issue, I think the Democrats are much stronger. I think the Republicans, for the most part, with one or two exceptions, have been profoundly weak. They offer thoughts and prayers and not much else. The situation in the United States, and I'll just make this point quickly. For those who say, oh, criminals will always have guns, that's pure defeatism. If we were talking about a virus or some other crisis, um, they would be demanding action. With the gun issue, the problems are blamed on it, everything but guns, mental health, broken families, alienated youth, you name it. Those problems can be found in other countries. Those problems can be found in Canada, in Britain, in Japan. But this particular problem with this level of gun violence is almost unique to the United States. Um, Certainly, if you look at Japan, Australia, and Britain, gun violence rates are much, much lower, and that corresponds with tougher gun laws. It's just a fact. The argument that criminals will get guns anyway is a weak argument, in my opinion. But anyway, Bloomberg's been consistent on this. He set up the mayors against illegal guns. I give him credit for that. And I hope whichever Democrat gets in will not be afraid to stand up to the gun lobby. But it doesn't stand them out necessarily because all the Democrats have a pretty good record on that. They've all got low ratings from the NRA, which is kind of the litmus test. If the NRA gives you a low rating, then you're doing something right regarding the gun issue. That is, if you are of that school of thought, as I am. But I still am uncomfortable with this idea that he's just buying the election. This idea that, I mean, there may be other candidates whose views and ideology are just as appropriate, just as valid. With Bloomberg, it all comes down to the money. And I watched a bit of the debate performance. He was all right, but he wasn't exceptional. He didn't look particularly comfortable. He didn't look that confident. And it was predictable that Elizabeth Warren and others were going to round on Bloomberg. But the Democrats also have to be careful here not to let their race get too nasty and personal, because Trump will be laughing all the way to his re-election if that happens. The Democrats have to remember that whilst they will have ideological differences, ultimately the thing is to beat Trump, and I hope they will support whichever candidate gets in. There are candidates I have issues with. I think Tulsi Gabbard still hasn't explained why she visited Assad. She claims it's some sort of pacifist thing, and she uses her military service to kind of hide behind that. Like, oh, well, I served, so it's okay for me to visit Assad. No, it's, as far as I'm concerned, this is a dictator who has been responsible for tens of thousands of civilian deaths, torture, displacement, inhumane brutality against the Syrian people. And for her to visit him, frankly, I find rather stomach churning. And for her to claim that it's some sort of pacifist thing. Well, did she meet any of the rebel leaders? Did she meet any of the opposition? Because I don't think that she has fully answered that. So I hope she dropped out of the race because I don't think someone who's an Assad apologist, and until she shows otherwise, that's what I will regard her, should be anywhere near the White House. Um, her supporters will immediately, accuse me of being a warmonger or whatever. It's kind of like with Tulsi Gabbard. I think it's a bit like the Ron Paul phenomenon about 10 years ago. There's no critical thinking. It's like she's right, and anyone who disagrees is a warmonger. That's pretty much the attitude. Anyway, with Bloomberg, the big question mark with Bloomberg is his stance on China. He has said things. For example, he's basically said that Xi Jinping is accountable, the Chinese Communist Party is accountable because when they have a crisis, they have to answer to the people. He's basically downplayed Chinese authoritarianism. Now, if this guy does get further, he really needs to be put on the spot over that. He can't hide behind his money. He needs to engage in debate. He is now, but I do hope he's held to account. I don't want to become so nasty that it gets really vitriolic, but I do think Bloomberg needs to answer some of these things. So, put it this way, if Bloomberg becomes American president, I just hope it doesn't become the norm that big money will win elections. And he himself would have to say, he'd have to show it's not just about his money. And I think he's going to struggle to do that because whatever boxes he ticks, ultimately, everyone knows he's buying these ads. He's paid for a Super Bowl ad, which is like 30 seconds with a massive price tag. I think it's $5 million. So he can afford it, but people are going to raise that issue because they're going to say, well, there might be better candidates who simply can't afford the sort of advertising that he is getting. That's my take. In Britain, we have election expenditure limits. I'm not sure exactly what they are, but the entire British election is probably not much more than £1 million. The entire election all advertising, all political spending of all parties. So I do think the United States maybe needs to bring in some electoral finance laws, like there should be a maximum expenditure, something like that. Just my thoughts. You don't have to agree with me. Thanks for watching.